Today, I'm going to go over this drone mission template that will be helpful for when you plan your next drone flight. About a year ago, when I came back to London, I made this video on how to fly your drone in London and made this template to help plan my drone flights. A year later, I have made some changes, and as that video has been so popular, I thought in this video I will go over explaining this template and how it can be helpful when planning your next drone flight. I use this template for most of my flights, especially when flying in complex areas like cities or completing commercial jobs, as it's a good idea to check before you fly. In some cases, there won't be need to complete this. But if you're new to drones, this template will help you get started with what information you need to have with you and check before you take off. So let's take a look at this template. Now what I've done is I've created a theoretical example of how I would plan a drone mission. This is not a place that I have flown at, but these are the steps that I would take. If you would like to follow along, you can download this template for free on my website. The link is in the description box down below. In this template here, we are doing a theoretical mission plan for Hyde Park in London. So as you can see at the top here, we have the mission plan number and the general name for this mission. It doesn't have to be anything special, just give it a name so at least you're aware of it. Now this first section basically entails general information about the mission, such as your objective, whether it's recreational or for a commercial purpose. So in this case, we're doing an aerial shoot for Netflix, the document date, shoot date, the time of the shoot and the duration, the area of operation, and your maximum altitude. And again, this is generally speaking for most countries around the world, it's around 400 feet or 122 meters, but there are exceptions. You then fill in your basic details. And here in the UK, we have operator and fly ID, but I've also put in here, if we have an FAA, EASA or Canadian RPAS license, we can include this information as well. A DJI lock, is it required? Normally these will be around stadiums or restricted zones. And here in the UK, again, if you're flying in a restricted zone like Hyde Park, which is in zone R157, we would need to make sure we fill in a non-standard flight application. And on the day of flight, we would get a CAD reference. So we would put this here. And then do we have permission to take off from this location? This will be completely separate, but normally you would have to get permission to where you're taking off. And then we would include our insurance information, so the insurer and then your policy number, and then your insurance cover limit. And if we're part of any drone association or clubs, we would put that information here as well. Now you'd be thinking, why do we need all this information? Well, normally when you're submitting this document to get authorization to fly or to get authorization to take off from a location from landowners, this document will help you get those permissions because all the information will be there. Now in the next section here, we're going to be looking at the drone that you'll be flying. So in this example, I put DJI Mini 2. Obviously, if you're filming for Netflix, you might use something a little bit more professional, but a DJI Mini 2 can still pull off some good shots. So we'd put here the drone registration if you have one. So normally in England, this would be the operator ID. A drone has to be registered. This is where you would put it. You then need your serial number for that drone and the serial number for your flight controller. And then we want to put some basic information about the drone. Its max flight time on a single battery, the operating temperature, and the wind speed that it can handle. Again, when you're submitting this document to someone else, they'll be able to see this information. And you can get all this information from the drone's manual. The next thing that we need to look at is the airspace. DJI Geo Zone Unlock. We go to DJI Fly Safe and unlock our zone when needed. Obviously, this will be at the date and time of the shoot. So we would check if one is needed, we do it. If one isn't required, then we'll just put here no. The next section is for you to know the legal distances you have to be from an airport and a heliport, and this will vary from country to country. If you have taken your drone license, you should know these, or you can look this information up. I would then put in the closest airport to the location you are flying. So here in London, the closest airport to Hyde Park is actually London City Airport, not Heathrow. They are almost the same distance, but London City is slightly closer. You can put more than one airport here, but in this example, I've just put the one. And you need to put in the airport code, its frequency, and the runway numbers. And this is so if something does go wrong, you're aware of what the closest airport is, and the contact information, which is what I've put here next. So in this instance, I've just put general inquiries, a contact number of the airport, and a link to more information for the airport from SkyVector. This is a good place to get your airport information. And again, if there's a separate link like their website, it will tell you here more information you can get when you're in a sticky situation. So if you have a drone flyaway, you have the information ready to go. The next part we need to check after air hazards is ground hazards. So it's a good idea before planning a flight to either use Google Maps to check potential hazards on the ground in that area, or actually perform a site visit. Go to that site and check with your own eyes on the ground what hazards there are. So the potential hazards that we could have are pedestrians if they're walking about that day, unless it's a closed set, we just put it in there for now. The lake will be considered a hazard because if something goes wrong with the drone, it takes a dive in the lake, it could injure wildlife. Trees are obviously an enemy to drones. If it's too windy, it might fly into a tree. Low flying birds. Obviously Kensington Palace is nearby. We don't want to destroy anything that's of value. That's why we have insurance. And if there's anything else that you can think of, just put here potential hazards. This just helps you become more aware of when you're flying a drone, what to look out for as you're taking off. Now, a good one and obvious one for most of you is checking the weather. So we're going to put here the date of the proposed flights that we're going to be doing. And obviously, if the shoot is in advance, like 3 months, 6 months down the line, then yes, it's going to be very difficult to check the weather, but you can use historical data to at least give you some guidance on what it could be like on that day. Pretty easy, just type in historical weather data and you'll be able to go back in time to check. So as this is a shoot in the future, we can guess what the conditions will be like, whether it's cloudy, sunny, windy, the temperature in the day, night, its chance of precipitation, your wind speed and your gust speed, and then your KP index. This is for geomagnetic storms, and the time you've checked the weather. And obviously we can just put here to be confirmed closer to the date of the shoot, which is more normal. So maybe 2 weeks to a week in advance, and you'd want to check this regularly towards your shoot date. The source of information where you're getting your weather information from, so you can use UAV Forecast, which is a very good weather app, or you can just go to Google Weather, BBC Weather, and even include a link here to that source of information. So next time you check, you can just click that link and go back to check it much quicker. Before we continue, if you're finding this video useful, give this video a like and subscribe. 96% of you enjoy watching my videos but aren't actually subscribed, so hit that subscribe button for future videos on drones, photography and everything in between. So the next section after weather is bystander locations. So we're going to put ourselves, the pilot in command, and if we have any crew members with us on that day, we would want to put their names here too. And when we hit the next section, you'll see where we will put those on the map. So here you want to put as much map information as possible, because again, this document is going to be all-in-one document which you will send to get permission to take off or to air traffic services where you're getting permission to fly. This way they will see that you've done your homework. So the first one, again, zone unlocking by DJI. If it needs to be, put it here. If it doesn't, I would still put it here to show that you have checked that you don't need a DJI unlock for this section. Because we're flying in Hyde Park, you can see we're in zone R157, and we have a stadium nearby as well. As you can see this blue icon, that would be a stadium. And there's actually one down here as well, Stamford Bridge. As we scroll down, we have here one by Map Developers. Map Developers is a good website to be able to draw a circle of your flight path or where that area you'll be flying. So I've obviously put here 1,000 feet as an example, and we'll be flying, taking a shoot for Netflix of Kensington Palace here. Next, we can include a Google Maps here because it just has that more information. And then we're going to use a Google Maps one again, but a satellite picture. And this is where we can put information for proposed takeoff and landing positions. This is why site visits are important. I would also include here a map of closest airport locations. So what I've done here is using Google Maps, you can actually create a measurement between your location and the end of the runway of the closest airport. So which is City Airport. And if we zoom in here, it's just over 15 kilometers. So we're way out of an airport zone, but it's always good to know. Here in the UK, we also have an app called Altitude Angel, which is amazing. It gives you a lot of information on ground hazard and restricted air zones. So you can see here's a lot more detailed, and the map is very interactive. So if you're a new drone user, I strongly recommend to download Altitude Angel, which is free. And you can even plan your flight missions with this. Maybe I could do a separate video on that. If you would be interested, let me know in the comment section down below. And I would also include UAV Forecast has maps as well, and it will actually tell you the time the weather is good throughout the day. So as you can see here, it's quite detailed. So you'd pick your location and it gives you all these tiles on temperature, wind, precipitation, sunrise and sunset times. And as you can see at the bottom, you see it will tell you have these red and green zones, and these zones are the ideal times to fly. And I'll just include a screenshot of this information plus the map. Remember, the more information you can provide, the better, and it also helps you with your planning, especially if you're doing commercial jobs or flying in complex areas. And the last section here is your emergency plan. When shit hits the fan, what are you gonna do? So, have you lost signal to your drone? What are you gonna do? Is it too windy and your drone's flown away? What are you going to do? So you gotta have these procedures in place, because again, when you're getting permission from landowners or national air traffic services, they're gonna know that you know what you're doing in a bad situation. So I would put here, if there's a lost link, this is the procedure I would do before contacting an airport as a last case scenario, or the nearest control tower, I should say. And what if your drone falls out of the sky and actually hits someone, whether it's a bystander or a crew member? What is your plan there? Because you need to be ready. I would just have a quick summary of the information you would need to give to the closest control tower in case of a flyaway, the location where it happened. And I've got here the latitude and longitude in both formats. And you can get this information from latlong.net. And again, just put in the closest distance from your airport, and then obviously the altitude. You would check, if it's a flyaway, you would check the remote controller, the last altitude the drone was at. And that is the end of this document. So this template will work worldwide, so it's not restricted to just the UK. You can use this if you're in the US, Canada, Europe, wherever. This is not an official document with any aviation authority. This is more just a guide to help you get a better understanding of the items that you need to check before you fly your drone, whether as a hobbyist or as a commercial drone pilot. Let me know in the comments if there's anything new you learned today, and if you are a seasoned drone pilot and you think we can add to this template that's important, let me know. I have made this template available for free on my website. The link is in the description box down below. If you would like to make a contribution, even if it's just a cup of coffee, that would be much appreciated. Thanks for watching. Let me know what drone you're flying and what has been your favorite location to fly at so far. See you in the next video. And if you enjoyed this, then YouTube recommends you watch this one next.